Good morning. How are you? My name is Michelle Nagel, and I'm really grateful that you're here. We're going to be talking about stress eating today. Stress eating is something that really just can take over your life, and I experienced some of that myself over the holidays as things that just kind of get out of control. So I'm actually looking forward to this as well because I struggle with it myself. So if we haven't met yet, again, my name is Michelle Nagel, and I love supporting people who are motivated to improve their health. And I'm excited to help you remove the discomfort and anxiety caused by stress eating. So we've got, on the one hand, you're anxious and you stress eat, and then you stress eat and you're anxious because you just know you did something that wasn't good for yourself. So I'm going to give you some real good tips and helps that will help you understand what you can do that'll make it so that it's not going to be so much of a problem for you. Again, thank you very much for joining me today. You can focus on your life experiences more and be able to achieve your goals and aspirations if you don't have this problem of going into the stress eating, because as I mentioned before, you stress eat and then you beat yourself up because you stress ate something. That's hard to say. And then you go ahead and you're already anxious. So it's just this vicious cycle. We go around and around and around. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Oh, well, I ate it. And you go eat something else that's just really bad for you. So if you have any questions today, please go ahead and use the chat box and I will respond to them as soon as I possibly can. Or you can email me at michelle@isoulshift.com and I will respond to them as soon as I can get to, as soon as I can get to them there. So what I'm going to do right now is tell you a little bit about myself. I am America's #1 resilience expert. And in the last 3 years, I've had to use that resilience an awful lot myself. So I know that the things that I teach you work, and I'm really excited to have you have success in your life doing the things that you want to do also. I've been teaching for over 30 years. I hate to tell people that because they think how old I am, but I have been. And I'm really excited to be able to continue teaching because it's my passion. It's what I love to do. I love to help people overcome the effects of the emotions that they have, which is oftentimes caused by an unhealed betrayal. Now, if you think about that, that might be something like oftentimes we will have a problem that we're working on and something comes up in our work or in our daily life, and it really isn't the stress response that we have really isn't related to the event that's happening right now. It's related to something that happened to us in our past, and the way that we respond to it is the way that we have trained ourselves to respond in areas of stress. So we're all wondering, or we're all somewhat familiar with the nagging voice of guilt in our heads that accompanies an excessive or indulgent meal. And it's another thing entirely to heed that voice and stop while our body is at a comfortably satiated level. Have you ever done that? I mean, you think you're going to have just a little teeny tiny piece of cake, and by the time you're done, you've eaten the whole thing, or a bag of cookies, or you just think, oh, just one isn't going to hurt me, but you just go ahead and you stop. I mean, you can't stop, you just keep eating. So stress eating can be defined also as emotional eating, or eating to compensate for or as an alternative to dealing with your emotions. So 27% of adults admit to turning to food with stress to deal with it, and 34% of those people admit to it being a habit. So it's just something that is like instinctual at this point because they do the habit so often. So why do we do it? So while it's easy to blame external factors, the food itself, the party who provided it, the place in which it was consumed, or wherever, the real underlying issue with stress eating is it lies in a lack of awareness of our bodies emotions and our ability to deal with them. So as I mentioned, oftentimes the stress that we're having comes because we are, it's triggered something in our past. And what we're doing is we're trying to feed our inner child. We're trying to feed and soothe and comfort that inner child. And here we are as an adult, totally out of control because we didn't deal with the emotions. So the majority of the time, stress eating is done at times when the body doesn't even need food. And the messages between your mind and your body get confused. And hunger is not the main thing that's wanting to be satisfied. Sometimes you're just thirsty. A lot of times the stress eating comes because our body gets dehydrated and we think, ooh, I'm hungry. And no, you're not really, you're just dehydrated. So you need to drink a lot more water. So really you're supposed to be drinking half a cup of water for every ounce of your body, which ends up being really pretty, a lot. For me, I have to drink 12 8-ounce glasses of water a day. Please don't do the math. But that's how much I have to drink every single day. And it can be a little bit hard because drinking tea or coffee does not count as drinking water. It's drinking tea and coffee. Water is just water. So Harvard Health has issued a fascinating article which details some of the reasons that stress can cause problems in overeating for adults. And the hormones it unleashes and the effects of high-fat, sugary comfort foods push people toward overeating. Researchers have linked weight gain to stress, and according to the American Psychological Association survey, about 1/4 of Americans rate their stress level from between 8 to 10 on a scale. So where is your stress level? Where would you put it on a scale of 1 to 10? Where would you put your stress level? And some people would even say on a scale of 1 to 10, mine is 15, because some of us are under a lot of stress. So in the short term, stress can shut down your appetite. I'm sure you've experienced that at some point where you've had a significant stress and then you didn't want to eat anything. You couldn't eat anything. I had a major trauma happen a couple of years ago and I lost 35 pounds in 1 month because I could not eat anything. And that's what happens with stress eating. Many times people can gain weight, but they also, if you get into the stress, the temporary short term will be you lose weight. And then your body goes into panic and goes, oh no, I've lost weight. And then you begin eating more so that you can regain that weight again because your body goes into a starvation fear mode. So it's like, you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. This is really a challenge. If you think about it, with any other kind of stress that you have in your life, if you have any kind of an addiction besides food, if you have any other kind of addiction, you can go cold turkey. So say you're a smoker, you could go cold turkey, but how do you go cold turkey on food? You have to eat food. It's a requirement in your life. So it becomes really difficult to do that. If stress persists, though, it's a totally different story. So the adrenal glands release another hormone called cortisol, and cortisol increases appetite and may also ramp up motivation in general, including the motivation to eat. Once a stressful episode is over, cortisol levels should fall, but if the stress doesn't go away, or if a person's stress response gets stuck in the on position, cortisol may stay elevated. So I have this analogy that I've used many times before when I'm talking about, say, a child who has gone through some sort of abuse. So you think about when you see a bear. I live in Ashland, Oregon, and I have bears around all the time. They love my next door neighbor's garbage can. And so I have to kind of look out the windows to see if there's a bear out there before I go out my door. And so if I see a bear while I'm out walking, and which has happened, I've been on a path walking along and I'm going, oh, look, there's a dog. No, that's not a dog, that's a bear. And then I have to turn around again. I get the fight, flight, freeze, or capitulate, or fawn is what they call it. That kind of response is it ramps up the adrenaline. You get ready to go, ooh, I'm either going to fight the bear, no, or I'm going to run away from it, which would be the one that I would choose. And you've got that, your amygdala and the hippocampus and everything in your brain, it's like there's a switch in your brain that shuts off. And all of the intelligent thinking just totally disappears. And that's what happens when you're stressed. And so when you're feeling stress on a regular basis from work or from something that has happened, if you might have had an accident and you're continually stressed because you're trying to heal from that, or you've had some sort of issue going on with family members or anything, just name it. Anything can be stressful for you. That switch can get stuck in the on position. And you'll find when you're eating, when you're stress eating, I should say, you're not thinking really coherently and really, you're not thinking well. You're just kind of mindlessly doing things. It's trying to comfort yourself. And that's what you're looking for. So when we do that, the studies have shown that the physical or emotional distress increases the intake of food high in fat, sugar, or both. High cortisol levels in combination with high insulin levels may be responsible. So not only does stress eating cause all sorts of problems like with your weight, but it's also going to cause problems with other things like your long-term health. So in the article that we were talking about, again, short-term stress can prevent the hunger cues, but the hypothalamus in the brain produces the hormones which suppress the appetite initially, but if the stress continues, the opposite occurs. And so the cortisol is released at higher and higher levels. I've actually felt cortisol pumping in my body when I'm under high stress. So it's like, if you have a panic attack or something, it's like, what am I going to do? Well, for me, panic attack, and when I have a panic attack, the only thing that cures it is a chocolate bar, which is not good for me. And I know that it's not good for me, but it's like my medicine for when I have a panic attack, which is ridiculous. It's not healthy for me at all. So it blocks out other emotions. Cortisol, when it gets so high, it blocks out the other emotions that you have, like conscious thought, mindful thought, intelligent thought, logical thought. It just blocks everything. And all you can think about is, I need to be soothed. I need to be comforted. I need something. And so that's why we stress eat. So the longer the stressful period continues, the more emotional eating a person will do, which of course then is eventually going to lead to weight gain. Further hormone imbalances of the cortisol, as well as insulin, as well as thyroid, as well as the female hormones, it's going to cause all sorts of problems in your body. Also an increased risk of this more serious diseases like heart disease and diabetes. So it's a vicious spiral, which once entered into can be really difficult to escape. But fortunately, there are ways to escape periods of stressful eating, and I'm going to give you some suggestions on how to do that. So the first step, which you are doing right now, is to acknowledge that it's become a problem, and you're here because you have acknowledged that it's become a problem. So this is often where most people fall down, because their eating habits can fluctuate, and periods of having non-existent appetite and mild stress to intense stress and emotional eating periods. So it's kind of like this all the time. And they have a quiz on psychologytoday.com. If you search for the emotion eating test, it'll help you assess your eating habits and why you act in a certain way around food. So that's a good resource right there, to be able to just get the knowledge. It's like, why do I eat this way? So cortisol is too frequently associated with the fight or flight reflex our bodies have in response to external threats or stressors. And when we experience periods of extreme stress, hunger, also extreme hunger, because that's a stress. So you think you're not going to eat for a while, you're not going to eat breakfast, and you're only eating teeny tiny bit of lunch and maybe you'll have dinner or something like that. When you do that, that also is a stressor. It throws your body into survival mode. All of a sudden, it's afraid that you're going to try to starve yourself to death. And so that also, it causes your body to respond similarly with the cortisol from periods of extreme hunger and extreme stress. The same trigger, I mean, the same thing. Either you're starving yourself or you're under extreme stress and you're eating too much. It then causes your cortisol level to go crazy. It just does. So there's an association that you get is similarly, we've grown up getting a stable release of neurotransmitters to the positive areas of the brain whenever hunger cravings are satisfied in a balanced way, leading to these increased correlations and associations between food and feeling. So when you were a child and you were hungry and your parents fed you, you felt better. I mean, how often have you seen a child, a baby who's crying and crying and crying, and mom sticks a bottle in his mouth and all of a sudden the baby's just as happy as can be. And then after they eat, then they smile and, you know, do whatever, all the other things that a baby does. But it's because they feel better after having food. And so you've got that association in your brain. You feel better after having food. Recognizing that these thought patterns have formed surrounding the way we feel and the way we view food, we need to start asking ourselves questions like, am I eating purely to feel that rush of contentment or because my body actually needs it? So this introspection is really, really important if you're trying to gain any kind of understanding on your eating habits. So take time to consider the questions next time you feel like overeating. If you're already aware of when you struggle to control your eating, I'd love to know about when that is. So what triggers you to stress eat? For me, it's pretty much anything that I feel stressed about. I know where my eating triggers come from. They come from a childhood of not getting that contented feeling because I was not fed when I was hungry. And so it's, for me, food is a huge issue and it's something that I really need to work on. So you need to know what are your stressors. I know it's not the most comfortable thing to look at. It's like, what's stressing me right now? It's really hard to look your discomfort straight on. We don't want to look at the discomfort. Why do you think we're stress eating? We're trying to get away from being uncomfortable and trying to be unhappy. But it's the only way to make progress against the damaging habits of stress eating, really. So even taking time to be honest with yourself and write down when you feel stressed or overwhelmed by thoughts of overeating, or when you automatically turn to food for comfort, can be a good way to begin. So if you were to take a journal, a piece of paper, something, keep it near your refrigerator even, or the cupboard where you keep your snacks or wherever you keep it, and just leave a piece of paper there and write down, why are you eating this right now? Why are you reaching for it? Why are you there? I've stood in front of my refrigerator several times going, why am I here? And it's like, I'm not really hungry, but I've got this, I call it, my mother used to call it a hidden hunger. It's kind of like the termites in the cupboards. I mean, you just feel like you're going to eat everything in the house because of this hidden hunger, which is an emotional hunger. It's not a physical hunger. So once you begin to identify those root causes, you can set to work to minimizing the risks of that when they will happen to you again. So for instance, if you know that you eat when you're lonely, plan to call a friend or write in your journal instead. If you know that you eat the more frequently you divert your energy to these alternative outlets for your energy and thoughts, the easier it will become to ignore cravings to overindulge. So it can also help to always carry food with you so that you never feel deprived. Now, it depends on what kind of food you carry with you. If you carry high-calorie snacks with you, then that's not going to be helpful. But if you have an apple, you can stick an apple in a bag and have an apple. That's different. That's healthy. Or maybe a bag full of celery sticks or carrot sticks or something like that. Something that you have The crunchy things are usually more satisfying, which is why apple, carrot, and celery are really good snacks, because there's also that satisfaction of the bite and the crunch, which is somehow connected to the emotions as well. So the more frequently you divert your energy into these alternative outlets for your energy and thoughts, the easier it will be for you to ignore those cravings to overindulge. So it can also help. Emotional eating can be your body's reaction to feeling deprived in either a physical or a mental form. What are your love languages? Do you know what they are? If your love language is physical touch and you haven't been physically touched for a long time, go get a massage or find a friend. Just, tell somebody, I need a hug. And sometimes that is all it needs to be able to divert the stress eating habit that you have. So find new ways to nourish yourself. Stock your refrigerator with delicious, healthy foods. Pack your calendar with exciting things to do, and be disciplined about setting aside time for yourself to relax. Choose a nice soak in the bathtub instead of something from the refrigerator. So here's some different ways to distract yourself from stress eating. So number one is give yourself a massage if you can't find anybody else to do it. So massage your temples, massage your hands, or massage your feet. Or you can get a tennis ball and roll your feet around on the tennis ball, or you can put it at the small of your back and lean up against a wall and rub up and down on the wall. Just something that will give yourself a different physical sensation rather than eating. Drink a cup of tea. There's all sorts of like peace and calming kind of teas that you can drink that would be really great. Get some sleep. Sleep is one of the biggest reasons that we gain weight, because we don't sleep enough. So what do your sleep habits look like? Chew gum. I haven't managed to do that one yet, but you can. That helps some people. You can walk off the cravings. It's like, oh, I've got to go eat something. Go for a walk instead. On a snowy day, like it's snowing outside right now. So on a snowy day, you can go ahead and like walk around something in the room that you're in, if that's necessary. They have chew sticks for humans. So, they've got chew sticks for dogs. So they've also got them for humans. You can use worry beads. So, get yourself some worry beads and play with them. That's a way physically to distract yourself from eating. Or do purposeful distraction, like knitting, perhaps, or crocheting, or some sort of needlepoint, or a word puzzle, something that is conscious distraction. Like, I will give myself 10 minutes to do this word puzzle. When I'm done with the 10 minutes, then I have to get back to whatever I was doing before. But that time that you spend to do that will distract you so that you don't want to go ahead and eat. It's a distraction. So another thing is to tense up your body. It's called the ragdoll exercise. Tense up your body really, really tight, and then just slump like a rag doll. And do that a couple of times. And the difference between the tension and the relaxing and tension and relaxing, that distracts your body. It's like, oh, I'm not hungry. Because really all you needed was for all of that tension to move around. And when you tense up really tight and then let it go, relaxing will let go of the desire to stress eat as well. And the most important one is to breathe deeply. I knew a man many years ago, and his thing that he would say, he was an old man at the time, and he would say, none of us ever breathes deeply enough. And so spend time breathing deeply. Breathe into your belly. I was actually taught not to breathe into my belly when I was in school. They told us that it was bad because then you got air in your stomach and it would make you sick, and so don't breathe into your belly, which they know now is a bunch of ridiculous nonsense. And so I've had to teach myself how to breathe. Yes, you use your lungs, but you also breathe into your belly. The diaphragm is not located in the lungs. It's located under the lungs and above the stomach. So breathe with your diaphragm, not just with like the upper portion of your body. When you just breathe in the upper portion of your body, you are more at risk for heart problems. So breathe deeply, and that will help too. So mindful eating is a good thing that we can also do. So it's easy to recommend that a stress eater attend a yoga class or start meditating, but it takes a little bit of understanding of the activities to truly have the desired effect. So mindful eating is a term that's been coined by experts to help those who struggle with emotional eating to remain present and aware of the entire duration of a meal. How many times have you sat down and have no idea what you have eaten or how much you have eaten? Because it's an unconscious activity. We just don't pay attention. So it sounds like a simple task, but consciously taking and savoring bites of food for every meal is a difficult concept, even for those who aren't struggling to overcome emotional eating habits. Mindful eating consists of several easy to follow steps before, during, and after each meal. So before eating, assess your hunger truthfully. Take time to note your level of hunger before eating anything, and also note what kinds of foods would most successfully help fuel your body for the current situation or tasks that you're facing. Are you going to be doing something that's really, really heavy physical? If so, you don't want a big, huge meal, because then you won't have the energy. Your body will divert all of your energy into your stomach to digest all that. And so it'll make it really difficult for you to be able to accomplish what you're doing. So what are you going to be doing for the day? Are you going to be doing something that's going to require you to have a lot of energy or, I guess, lightness? It's like, this is a terrible example, but if a vulture is gorging, because they just gorge on the carcasses of dead animals. But if something comes along to threaten them, they throw it all up. So I'm not suggesting that anybody get into the habit of bulimia. That is really a bad thing. But really, that's what you have to think about when you're eating, is like, how much do I want to put into my body? What activities am I going to be doing during the day? And so then during the time that you're having your meal, chew slowly, take breaks, and try to test every little flavor. Try to taste what's in there. So if you've got a casserole or something, try to pick out the ingredients, taste them, see if you can tell what is inside the meal that you're eating. Many professionals recommend taking a break between 5 to 10 minutes in the middle of your meal. And then afterwards, try to view the meal you just ingested as fuel to help you achieve whatever tasks, work, or activities that you're planning to undertake. So mindfully assess how you feel physically. Note if the food was too heavy, too light, too much, too little, or just enough. And then you use this information to move forward. You don't allow regret to surface. You don't sit there and go, oh, that was dumb, I shouldn't have eaten that. You just take it, look at it as going, okay, I know better. So, Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. So then when you know that if the meal wasn't exactly to your satisfaction, then you know that you need to do some tweaks. You need to plan something else, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Maybe you didn't like what you ate. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were telling me how good something was, and I should eat it because it was good for me. And I said, if I really hate it, it's not good for me. And that's true. If you're trying to force yourself to eat something that you hate or that you have a bad reaction to, it's not good for you. I don't care how many experts can say, oh yes, you should eat this. If it's not going to respond in your body properly, it does not matter, and it's not good for you. So one of the things that you can do to begin your mindful eating process is a trick. It's called the raisin test. So you take one raisin and you put it in your mouth, and you don't start chewing immediately. Just kind of roll it around in your mouth and feel the wrinkles in the raisin. And sometimes when you rub it between your tongue and the roof of your mouth, you can feel maybe there's some seeds in there. You can be able to actually be conscious, aware of it. And then when you've done that, then you bite down on it and feel the rush of sugar in your mouth. So when you do something like that, when you take, even if it's a piece of lettuce or a bite of an apple or something like that, when you actually take the time to pay attention to it, that is what is mindful eating. and you're going to eat a lot less that way. Because at the time you're eating mindfully, you also go, you stop with the small pauses that you take in there, and you think, am I still hungry? And if you are still hungry, then you go ahead and you continue eating. If you're not, then don't. And you know what? Everything that goes in your mouth does not have to be swallowed. I know that most of us have been trained as like, you know, you've got to eat everything on your plate because there are starving children in China. That's got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because what good, I mean, you not eating that food is not going to help a starving child in China. It just isn't. So don't force yourself to eat something that is not good for you or that you don't have the room for. If you feel full and you still have like half the food is still on your plate, then put it in a little refrigerator dish and put it in the fridge. You do not have to clean up your plate. Your parents were wrong. You don't have to clean everything off your plate. So it's not rare to hear those who complain of mental health difficulties mention diet and a difficult relationship with food and stress eating as part of the symptoms of the illness that they experience. So have you ever thought about that? People who have mental health issues also have an eating disorder, and maybe not something that they would call a disorder, but most of us do have eating disorders when you think about it. Recent studies have shown that an overwhelming amount of our positive hormones and enzymes are secreted in the gut. And this means that ensuring digestion is at an optimum level should be a priority for those seeking to balance out hormonal and emotional functioning. For stress eaters, this could be an interesting place to start, considering their bad habits. The emotions causing the stress eating might initiate with complex hormonal imbalances. And so regulating digestion should become a priority to lower the chances and severity of these imbalances, slowly returning a certain amount of control to them in regards to their emotional eating habits. If the emotions aren't so strong and extreme, chances are the period of stress eating won't be either. So gut bacteria directly affects the brain and the hormones. And it's only in recent years that studies like there's one in Psychology Today about evolutionary psychology, the gut-brain connection, mental health, and issues. And the studies like that have shown just how strong the effect can be. And betrayal trauma, I can almost guarantee, will immediately mess up your gut. So combating your stress eating can be extremely difficult. And one way to face up to the reality of what you are consuming is to make a pact with yourself to write down every piece of food that passes your lips in a food diary. Everything that goes in your mouth goes into a food diary. For people who are used to ignoring ingesting unhealthy amounts of food in a single setting, this can be a real eye opener. Or to discover that you have been eating all day long. Like you started the moment you got up and started cooking breakfast for the family, you started snacking, and then you sat down and you had your meal, and then you got to clean up after the kids that didn't finish everything. So you're going to start eating the things that are on their plate as well. And it can just be something that can go on all day long, which is really a challenging thing. So if you begin to write it down, it's going to really be shocking and it'll wake you up. So take a note of when you eat, what you eat, and how you feel before, during, and after you eat it. So keep track of your emotions. What are my emotions telling me about the fact that I'm eating this right now? After a few days of this, you might begin to notice some patterns in your eating habits, whether positive or negative. Is bound to make you see some sort of consistency or inconsistency in the way you eat. There are now numerous apps available for your iPhone or Android phone, which help you keep track of your food intake, exercise, and have easy access to it. If you feel like writing down your intake and acknowledging the emotions which surround each meal, I encourage that you keep a food journal as opposed to just a diary even. So instead of just writing down the word, write down why. Why did I eat that piece of pie? Why did I grab that piece of candy? What was going on in my mind? What was I thinking about? And why did I do that? And it's really important that you learn about yourself. Learn why. What are your triggers? So food prepping. This is a hard one for me. There's only me. And so it's just kind of, that's a difficult thing for me to get in the habit of doing. The frustrating thing about emotional eating is that even the good intentions of cooking yourself a healthy meal can sometimes lead to a binge or a period of emotional unconscious eating, even if you've carefully prepared all of that stuff. So for those who struggle with a little thing called portion control, again, there's only me. And so oftentimes I think, well, I don't want to eat this for the next 5 days. So I have to figure out different ways to do things. And a great tip is the portion control. So it's avoid accidentally overeating that healthy meal that you spend hours preparing. And so what you do is you can enlist the aid of some trusty Tupperware boxes. And planning your meal ahead of schedule and pre-preparing some packed meals for when you know you're going to have a busy week at work or at home can save you hours of stressing and sweating over the cooker, and also hours of stressing and digesting a binge of stress eating. So if you know that you're going to have a busy day, and it's, how many times have you just said, I don't have time to cook dinner tonight, I'll just buy a pizza? And I don't know many people that throw the pizzas away if they're not all eaten. We just kind of eat them because after all, we paid for them and all those other things. So rather than getting to the point of going, oh dear, I didn't plan anything for dinner today, I'm going to go buy a pizza or some other fast food. If you can maybe in the morning realize that you're going to have a busy day and set up your crock pot or Instapot or something like that, then it makes it a whole lot better for you. So preparing and portioning your food like this at a time when you are not hungry to avoid the temptation to eat your prepackaged meals in one go is best. Like if you're starving for your dinner and decide to cook a week's worth of lasagna, chances are you're going to end up eating more than one portion. And this is what it means to mindfully cook. Mindfully grocery shopping too is really important. Don't grocery shop when you're hungry. So you can mindfully cook, mindfully eat, and mindfully prepare your meals. So if you feel like you've been measuring, analyzing, and attempting to change your eating habits to no avail, then it might be that you're simply not taking everything in your life in account as you attempt to change how you eat. As stress eating is an emotionally charged habit, simply changing what you eat may not get to the bottom of the issue. You may also need to look at other external factors such as the company you keep, environmental dimensions, and emotional and hormonal factors too. This includes your physical and mental activity. To successfully reassess your eating patterns, you have to reassess every aspect of your lifestyle. Have you gotten into a fight with somebody in your family recently, and do you head straight for the refrigerator or the snack cupboard? Look at those kinds of things. It makes so much sense, and yet it's often overlooked that to have a healthy relationship with food requires you to have a healthy relationship with all other aspects of your life as well. So livestrong.com is a great website which covers all aspects of achieving a healthy, balanced lifestyle. And it has articles with everything from food, nutrition, and mental and physical fitness that are available for you to reassess how those areas of your life fit together. So you can start reading about at livestrong.com. There is an article about eating unhealthy foods effects. So if you look that up, that will be something that would be good for you too. So while stress eating is not a recognized eating disorder, it can be a significant contributing factor to the symptoms of almost all of them. EDNOS stands for Eating Disorder Not Otherwise Specified, and is a term used to denote the varying intensities and scope of those suffering from unhealthy eating habits that don't quite meet the criteria for either anorexia nervosa, bulimia, or a binge eating disorder. The ironic thing is that as disordered eating patterns can cause your stress and anxiety levels to rise, becoming even more of a significant contributing factor to any existing issues with food. For example, if becoming stressed in a situation surrounding food causes you to lose control of your eating entirely and enter into a downward spiral of negative food associations, the stress eating can be seen as a trigger for worsening eating habits and spiraling negative thoughts of self-worth. So again, it's the I ate that, I hate myself because I ate that, I'm going to eat this because I hate myself. It's this constant thing. It's a precariously blurred line that exists between the labels of stress eating and eating disorder. And so it's advisable to seek psychological help if you think that you might be leaning toward having an eating disorder. The emotional eating test that I mentioned earlier in Psychology Today is a good way to assess your relationship with food and evaluate the steps necessary for you to take to overcome any issues. And then again, the other thing that is you might want to look up and do a little bit of research about is EDNOS, which is eating disorder not otherwise specified. And if you can look at that, that'll be really helpful too. So a huge portion of eating and food-related disorders come as a direct result of our negative body image and inaccurate perceptions of ourselves. We don't get to walk around as photoshopped images of ourselves, and yet we compare ourselves to photoshopped images all the time. Almost 100%, if not 100%, of the images that we see on a regular basis in the media, on television, and everywhere else have been photoshopped. And so we're comparing ourselves to things that aren't even real. And that gives us an inaccurate perception of ourselves. So the role that body image plays in beating stress and emotional eating is not immediately obvious, and yet as we delve deeper and start to understand more about the mind-body connection, we can see how stressors in the physical body directly correlate to stressors in the mind. So while overeating inevitably plays havoc on our our digestion and our internal organs, increasing the risk of contracting various diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular difficulties, it also places a huge amount of stress on our minds. Ezra Taft Benson once said, "We are digging our graves with our forks." As we've already discussed, the hormones and enzymes involved in creating the sensation of stress are produced in the brain and can be released in the body in response to external triggers or stressors. When these triggers occur, our actions respond directly to the particular emotions of sadness, guilt, stress, or self-hate associated with them. And emotional eating becomes a crutch on which we attempt to redirect the attention away from the uncomfortable thoughts or stressors. So the mind-body connection of our health is incredible. It starts really, when you walk past a mirror, what do you say when you catch an image of yourself? Do you walk past it and you go, "Oh, look how fat you're getting"? And your body, your subconscious doesn't know that that was just a comment, or maybe you were joking, or your subconscious does not know. And so it says, "Oh, I'm supposed to be fat. Well, gee, I better get on that." And so then that gets in there too. It's like, because you've already programmed yourself, this is what I'm supposed to look like. We hardly ever sit around and say things like, "Oh, congratulations, look at that, you fit in those clothes, look how nice you look." We hardly ever say that to ourselves, even if we do look really nice in our clothes. We always can find something wrong with ourselves. So we can be our own worst enemy on that. And that can trigger another binge of stress eating. So exercise, this is interesting. Exercise should not be used to counteract an episode of stress eating. So if you think, I'm going to, sometimes I've done this, it's like, okay, if I walk down to the store and eat that junk food while I'm at the store, then I have to walk back up the mountain to get to my house. That's exercise, and that will negate that thing I just ate. It doesn't work that way. And so it can significantly help, though, exercise, with reducing the urges to binge and lose control of food. So if you exercise before you get to that manic, I'm going to eat everything in the kitchen kind of place, if you exercise before you get to that point, it can help you so you don't get to that point. When we exercise, we feel good, stronger, and are full of positive endorphins that shift energy around the body instead of leaving them stuck in one place or another. So just like the lymph you have to have movement. The lymph does not have any other way to eliminate from the body. It's a way to remove toxins, but you can't move it if you're not moving. So it doesn't have like we've got the digestive tract, which has the urinary and the bowel way to be able to eliminate, but the lymph system doesn't have that. And so we have to be able to move so that it can then be sweated out, or the actual movement makes it so that the lymph glands work the way that they are supposed to. So your endorphins can also get stuck. And so you need to be able to have the movement of the body in order to be able to move that around. So as with the other lifestyle factors, which combine to make a balanced, healthy diet more achievable, exercise should ideally be engaged within moderation as a complement to a balanced lifestyle. I know people who are so distressed by their body weight, size, by stress eating and stuff like that, that they will exercise for 2 hours a day. That puts a stress on the body, and it's not healthy. It's not a good thing for you to do. So you need, instead of using exercise to run off excess calories from a period of stress eating, for example, try to distract yourself from stress eating in the first place by engaging in some light form of exercise instead. That's where you get up and you walk around. You do jumping jacks. Maybe you get a jump rope so that you can have it close by you and you just do your jump rope or whatever you need to do. If the urge to stress eat comes upon you at a time when your body is not hungry, and you've taken a moment to recognize this, the next step is to engage your mind and body with another activity to distract yourself from those urges. Again, it could just be that you're dehydrated and you need to drink water. So it's about actively working against the observations you make when you keep your food diary, not merely noting them and doing nothing with what you've noticed. Feeling safe, strong, and capable comes as a result of regular exercise. And these all happen to be emotions which those who stress eat regularly are lacking in. So feeling safe, strong, and capable are not emotions that people who stress eat feel. So why don't you? Stress eating can be viewed as a weakness and as a result of being incapable or unsafe in whatever conflicted emotions the person is dealing with at the time. In this way, exercise can prove to be highly beneficial to those hoping to strengthen against the temptation of stress eating mentality. Now, we've been conditioned externally by a vast, ever-growing, and ever-hungry giant that has a huge and relentless impact on all of our senses, not just hunger, the media. Many food companies, especially mass-produced fast food companies, use the media as a way to make us believe that their particular kind of food and lifestyle will make us happy. Enter the, quote, happy meal. Up until recent years, there was little to no emphasis placed on understanding the link between our food and our happiness. It was just assumed that bright colors and catchy ad campaigns would satisfy our need to fit in and eat to follow the trend. In terms of how this external presentation affects our mental health, however, the media has a direct impact on how we view our eating habits and, more importantly, our bodies. So think about it. If we're being told that eating a Big Mac or a Happy Meal will quite literally, quote, make us happy, then surely we're going to believe it and buy as many as often as we can, right? Not only is this mass-produced and processed food unhealthy for our bodies, but it's being presented to us in a way that is mentally unhealthy too. Add to this equation the frequency of the mixed messages coming from every angle, and it's no wonder that we lose touch with our senses, forgetting to listen to and satiate our body's natural needs and hunger cues. And while we know it's more likely we'll consume more food if our attention is diverted elsewhere on TV or social media or so forth, it's interesting to consider, is it also to blame for the emotional eating? So getting to know what your triggers are key if you are ever to overcome or at least manage your emotional eating. There are no specific outlines as to what your individual triggers are. And everybody can be different, have different things. And so it's often hard to gauge when or how a stress eater will be triggered to binge. I have a friend who told me the other day that he cannot go to socials at his church because he knows that he will eat too much, because he's not paying attention to what he's eating. He's paying attention to hanging out with good friends, having a wonderful time. And so he chooses not to go to the socials because he knows that he's going to make himself sick by eating too much. So I would recommend that you take time to try to gain control of your eating habits, to focus solely on you, not on what people think of you, because that really doesn't matter, but focus on you. And no matter how tempting it may be to surround yourself with people all the time to hide your eating issue. I mean, is that the only time that you hang out with people? Sometimes the only time friends see each other is when they're eating. Or the opposite, complete isolation. I can eat this and nobody will see me eat it. I can eat this entire cake and nobody will see me eat it. You know, how do you do? What are the things that you do to be able to do it? The solution to stress eating will not be found in either the extreme of too many people around all the time or isolation. You won't be able to figure it out that way. So it's by becoming comfortable eating when you need to, as much as you need to, and stopping at that. Slowly beginning to trust yourself around food again. Trusting your body and the signal it's giving, and listening for once instead of numbing pain or other complicated emotions with food. So triggers are huge, because it's triggering something again in your past, and it could be an unhealed trauma somewhere that's causing the problem for you. So in the end, avoiding stress eating and learning to nourish yourself with balanced, satiating meals is easier said than done, and you may slip up from time to time. Busy schedules and unpredictable meal plans happen, but the critical thing to be aware of is that is perfectly natural. Not everybody eats 100% normal or 100% healthy 100% of the time. Sometimes what's helpful is if you have something like, I used to call it a Friday fun night, and it's that you eat really, 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 really well for 6 days of the week, and then choose one day. We always choose Friday because it was the end of the week, where it doesn't matter what you eat. And you do that for a period of 2 hours. You don't do it all day long. You only do it for one meal. It's like, I do not care how much I eat or what I eat. I'm going to eat this pizza. I'm going to eat all of these things that I don't normally eat or that I know are unhealthy. And then the next morning when you wake up, if you've been eating clean, I can guarantee you're not going to feel really good. But it's a good thing to know and notice. And maybe the next time that fun night comes around, maybe you'll have a little bit more moderation in what you do. But if you know that you've got something to look forward to, like a binge day, I've got this day I'm going to look forward to, and I'm going to treat myself to that piece of pie, and I've got that to look forward to, then it also helps you stay on track. So in the end, avoiding stress eating and learning to nourish yourself is something that's going to require some work. So, but by providing your body with balanced, regular, portion-controlled meals, you'll begin to gain control of your eating patterns. And more importantly, to recognize when you have thoughts or emotions that would previously have resulted in a stress eating session. Another thing that you would also keep note of is the experts all the time will tell you that you need to eat breakfast the first thing when you get up. If your body says, please don't stuff that food in me, don't. Listen to your body. Your body is the expert. Your body, your physical body knows and will give you that information if you just take the time to pay attention to it and ask. The battle against any food-related issue is not one that can be fought once and never again. Instead, it's a series of decisions made over and over again, meal after meal, and hunger cue after hunger cue. Maintaining awareness surrounding your tendencies and habits as you continue to engage with your food is the most mindful way to achieve balance in your eating habits. This can be particularly difficult surrounding elements, environments, or people in your life that may previously have contributed to the stress eating trigger. Let me think about that. Do you visit family members that caused you to eat to stress eat? Then you need to deal with that. It's vital that you acknowledge them for what they are and take the steps to reduce or remove them. So the topic can be sensitive to people, the stress eating. It really can be. So I want to check in with how you're feeling after everything that we've discussed today. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling inspired? Are you ready to attack this once and for all? I'd love to know if there is anything that you've found particularly of interest or that has helped you. And it might seem like a distant, unachievable goal right now for you to overcome your stress eating, but it is doable, I promise. So with a little bit of determination and, of course, support, I believe that you can change the way you think about food for good. So I'm here to support you. If there's anything that I can do to help, please let me know. Message me again at michelle@isoulshift.com. As I said, I am America's #1 resilience expert, and I can help people overcome stress eating. I have helped people overcome stress eating because it's dealing with the emotions, dealing with all the stuff back there that happened back there in your life that makes it so that stress eating is a problem for you in the first place. And I would love to be able to help you and to connect with you. So please reach out to me, and I would love to initiate that conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope that you found something that was of worth and value to you. And I'll see you again. Bye.